Hello, today I have Erin Faehrmann from Youth Opportunities joining us on the Business Growth Mindset podcast. Now, Erin is the Chief Executive Officer of Youth Opportunities, a non-for-profit organisation that works with young people to improve their well-being, resilience and enterprise skills. Each year, Youth Opportunities and its social enterprise Generation Thrive engage with more than 2,000 young people from 40 schools and organisations right across Australia. Erin is a leading speaker on personal leadership, well-being, business change and systems thinking. Her work utilises the public sector, youth leadership, education and the not-for-profit sectors. As a kid from humble beginnings, Erin has a passion for working with young people facing complex challenges. Now, get comfortable and listen up, because today you will learn about the power of being a purpose-driven organisation, what it takes to make a difference to the lives of young people and their families, and how to grow your business by taking action on opportunities.
Welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Mindset Podcast, Series 3. I'm your host, Kristian Livolsi, and I'm incredibly excited to welcome our guest, Erin. And I'm going to, in a moment, get Erin to introduce herself. But Erin, welcome to the Business Growth Mindset Podcast.
Thank you.
Awesome. Look, I just know how busy you are and what a wonderful organisation you work with that is close to my heart. So I am grateful for you making the time. We've had a little discussion off air and a couple of laughs. And, when I say a couple, we've been actually talking for about 17 minutes. We should have probably pulled that into the recording. There is some fun conversation, but no doubt it's going to come through. But look, Erin, tell our audience a little bit about you, but from the angle of where you've come from and where you are today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always like to start where I am today.
Okay.
And that's because the company I worked at before I worked here at Youth Opportunities, I was at for 17 years. And when you're somewhere for 17 years, even if it's a really big place, people remember you from when you were like a baby, and they kind of struggle to reimagine you as you grow. And as someone, particularly myself, very growth minded and took on lots of opportunities in that time, I changed a lot. So I always like to start with where I am now, and then we can work backwards.
You're my guest. Go crazy.
Good. I'll do what I want, Kristian.
I love it.
So where I am now, I'm the Chief Executive of Youth Opportunities. I've been here, I can't remember how long, like at least pre-COVID, right? Everything's just pre or post-COVID. So it's probably been about 3 years. Part of the reason I don't remember is because prior to that, I volunteered on the board of Youth Opportunities. So I've been involved with Youth Ops for at least 6 years now, and in the board, and then coming as the incoming CEO, as our chief executive at the time was looking for a way to get back into retirement. Actually, bless him, so I want to retire. And succession planning, these types of roles, is quite challenging. It does require some strategy, and had a few goes at it before they kind of let me take a strategic approach instead of just hiring people thinking that it was a good fit. We did some good work about properly succession planning, because he had an amazing legacy here, and in not-for-profits in particular, but I think really everywhere, relationships are key, and you don't transition those overnight, do you? So yeah, loved every minute, even the hard ones here at Youth Ops for the last few years. And prior to that, as I mentioned, I was 17 years at here in South Australia. We have a large government-owned corporate water utility called SA Water, and I was there for most of my professional career. I had about 14 jobs in 17 years. It's 2,000 people in that organisation, over 150 years old. Water utilities in general, very large, complex businesses, and they're like an MBA, but in a business. You've got finance, accounting, customer services, scientists, engineers, accountants, HR people, community people. You've got the whole world of business kind of in one place. And in that business, I started in information technology, but I over time just got a reputation of being Mary Poppins, a generalist in a company full of specialists. If they had complex, between the gaps, adaptive type work that needed to be done, or some shifts in transformation, then they'd call me up and sign me up for something else. So I was in IT doing technology transformation. I moved out into operations, into the field, working on business performance in different areas. I ran the capital delivery program office for a while, optimizing how they did that. I ran school education. I ran social media. I ran long-term water planning over on Kangaroo Island, which is a small island here just off the coast of the mainland. I mean, I just had the most fun and some tough times, but the most diverse, most amazing opportunities to choose growth time and again in that organisation. And prior to that, I been at university. I worked in banking in London for a year. That was super fun when I was 17 years old. Wasn't even old enough to go to the pub and have a beer with everybody, but I was managing $1 million deal trades down in the technology and accounts department in the morning going, what am I doing? I have no idea what I'm doing here. But it was fun. It was fun. They love Aussies over there. They trust us, and I did a pretty good job. So I stayed on for a year. But I guess where I really, really came from, I grew up in a tiny little town in central Queensland that had like a couple of hundred people. We had dirt roads. We didn't have rubbish collection or mail delivery or anything. We just in the middle of nowhere. We had a house on either side of us and then two massive just paddocks as far as I could see full of camels and horses, and that was it. There was no humans around. So consequently, I am no good at skateboarding or roller skating because there was no concrete in my childhood. There were no flat surfaces.
What about road bikes? What about
yes, but I was pretty good BMX bandits.
Motocrosses or anything like that?
And pretty good at walking around in the middle of the night, not really worrying too much about where I'm going. And look, raising kids in rural and remote communities definitely has the positives like that, but also enormous amount of challenges. So I did grow up in really quite horrific circumstances around all the things you don't want your kids to grow up around. Alcoholism, mental health issues, child sex abuse, domestic violence, because sometimes people go to the country to hide or to check out of society. Sometimes they go there for beautiful lives and they're very community minded. You have all of it all mixed in one. So yeah, that's where I originally came from, and also the reason for the passion for the work that I have now here at Youth Opportunities, helping young people, no matter their circumstances and no matter how hard their life is, making sure that they've got every opportunity to live their best life and take themselves forward, no matter how much people around them have set them up for success or not. And even, I mean, I'm an auntie to 15 kids, and those kids have had some amazing opportunities and certainly haven't been through the things that I went through as a child, but they still have tough times and they still don't always listen to their parents. We all know that.
Yes.
So yeah, I love it. Youth Ops we do obviously as a charity, so we rely on the support of the community, including your good self. Thank you, Kristian, a long-time supporter of ours, to work with young people who themselves and their families and their communities can't afford to access the types of programs that we have and the kind of coaching that you offer. These are things that just are not affordable for these young people and their families. So that is primarily who we work with, but we also have a social enterprise that works with hundreds of people who can afford to pay and do find value in that personal leadership, and they do pay, and the profits from that go back to fundraising for young people who can't afford what is an excellent personal leadership program and sets them up for success in the future.
Yeah, look, apart from that, that was an amazing synopsis of your entire life all in one. Hopefully you practiced that a few times, I hope, because it sounded like it. I was like,
did it?
I need to learn to do mine like that well, that quickly, because I seem to talk about it forever and it still never tells the picture.
Maybe you've had a more vibrant life than me. I don't know.
No. I think you summed it up really beautifully. And I got to say, as someone who's got to witness many graduations, Youth Opportunities makes a massive difference to these people's lives, not just to the individual who's going through, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about this, not to the individuals just themselves, but their whole families are impacted by it. And I got involved a long time ago in Youth Ops, and I've always had a soft spot for helping those who haven't got the same opportunities that I've been given. I'm a white privileged male who didn't ever have to worry about food on his table as a child. Yeah, sure, everyone knows I grew up in a savage domestic violent household, but that's, for me, I was one of the lucky ones that came out of that well. But I got given pretty much everything that I needed to at least give myself a chance. Some of these people don't get that chance. I actually, without mentioning a school, I got dragged out to a school to do some support work before Youth Opportunities was formed, and I was doing it for with Judy Potter, who when she ran SA Great, and went out there, and teachers were like, "There's no chance that you can make a difference here." And I just looked at the teachers and I was like, "What?
You watch me."
I said, "You kidding me?" "Oh no, all of our girls generally get pregnant around 16, 17 years old, and the boys end up only was I think 10% graduated year 12." And I'm just like, wait a minute, so why do you exist? And I remember Jude looking at me going, she rang me. She wasn't there, but she rang me. She goes, "Did you say that to the headmaster?" I said, "Well, yeah, I did. I couldn't."
It is shocking. That's shocking statistics.
If you say that to me, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, there is no way that I can accept that what you're telling me is truth, right? Like, come on. So I said, "Listen, why don't we run a speakers program here?" And I ended up mentoring for 3 years. I took on this project. It was a drive and a half. I think it was almost like an hour drive up and back. And the two girls and a boy from year 10, all of them went on to university, and I still speak to them today.
That's amazing.
And one of the girls said to me, "It's lucky. I would have been one of those statistics who would have got pregnant, and I would have left school." And that person is now a doctor.
Amazing.
Right? So it's like,
yeah.
And I think we all, and that's when I first got introduced to Youth Ops, was about 2 years later. And I was like, hang on a minute, this is what I've been trying to do as an individual, right? There is this whole organization doing this.
Working with thousands of kids.
Peter Carey was there with his big, gigantic football hands, and this, I'm 6'3" and he's like taller. So, and I'm trying to remember the first graduation I went to, and maybe I'll stop talking, but I want you to tell us a little bit more about what I'm trying to convey, because I think it's a really important message that all my listeners need to hear, because there's a lot of philanthropists that listen to this podcast, and a lot of people who are starting their careers or startups, but also there's a lot of established business people, not just in South Australia, but all over the world. And I just think if we can let people know of the amazing work that you're doing, right? And also the why behind it. Living their best life is one thing, but I think it's around that opportunity, and that's why it's Youth Opportunity. I'm covered in goosebumps. Like, it's like, honestly, people listening, you can't see this, but my bald head has very fine hairs, but it's actually up. I
can confirm.
She'd be rubbing my head. She'd be like, "Papa, your head's going up." Like, I know. It's like,
I know. They are that inspiring.
No?
Yeah.
But it is. So can you just please just share a little bit more about maybe about the program?
Yep. Love to.
And then the outcomes. I'd love it.
Yeah. So I'm with you. I fell in love with the program. I grew up in Queensland, so back then in the 80s and 90s we didn't have this program. So when I moved to South Australia as a teenager myself, again, so fascinating. You mentioned that story. I remember being 15 years old and looking at the girls particularly that were older than me and going, "Oh my God, they're all dropping out of school and getting pregnant." And my mum was a small business owner. She owned the small country town. She was a widow. We were latchkey kids from the age of 8. I'm going, really, is this it? Get pregnant and run a country store? Like, there's got to be more in life. And we've got a lot of family here in Adelaide, South Australia. So I remember at 15 saying, "Mum, that's it. I'm moving to Adelaide to live with our family." And she's like, "We'll all pack up and go." I said, "No, I'm being cool. You're staying. I'm going." Now, in retrospect, I'm so glad that she made that bold decision to move myself and my 2 sisters as well, sold the shop, sold the house and moved, and we couch surfed for a while until we found somewhere, because it was, I don't know, I was listening to the radio and heard that the school that I went to in a place called Emerald had the worst education outcomes in the nation. And I thought, nah, not for me. I don't have, there's more out there. I didn't realize that what I'm experiencing right now, there is more. And that's, I guess, what we do for young people. I often say that, if I had youth ops when I was 15, I can see the trauma I could have avoided, the psychology work I could have avoided, the leadership work I could have avoided, the trauma small t trauma, I inflicted on other people early in my leadership journey. Like, wow, so many things. It's taken me so long to get where I am. And these young people we work with at 15 are learning lessons that I didn't learn until I was in my 30s. And how amazing is that it's shaping their life from that point and lifting their aspirations. So yeah, when I found out about the program from a friend who works here, I fell in love with it. I started volunteering. I've got the logos tattooed on my arm. I believe
I was
so
going to
deeply.
say, I noticed some of those.
These are the four big decisions from our
no.
framework. Listener, you can't see them, but go on our website.
I know some of this might go up on YouTube, so some they will see. Yeah, there you go. Awesome.
So yeah, the framework, it's really smart, evidence-based, but there's also heart, which is, what you've also experienced. So I love that combination of smart and heart, because for me, I am at my core a very evidence-based business decision maker. I'm all about systems thinking and sustainable change. So handing things out to people or saying that 1,000 people attended something is useful, but it's not talking about the so what, why. So why are you doing that? What change is it going to make in people's lives? And for me here at Youth Ops, we've got a really strong evidence-based program. It's got a toolkit of 30 tools that sit within a framework of 4 big decisions. Underlying all of that, the core ethos is what we call personal leadership, and in theoretical terms, it's called the locus of control. So we use Levinson's locus of control to measure that sense of, in an individual person, how much do they feel they have control over the circumstances and the actions and decisions in their life versus external. And of course, you can overdo it, but not by much. So what we're trying to teach young people is that, I know your life can be hard. You can face different circumstances than the people sitting next to you. It's not going to be handed to you on a silver platter, but no matter what happens, you get to choose how you react, whether you're nice to other people. If you're lucky, you'll get to choose careers and university or TAFE, and you have lots more autonomy in your life, but don't disempower yourself by being a victim. You are the hero of your life, and some of the time being a hero of your life is going through really tough challenges and coming out the other side. But you have to know at every step, you get to choose. Do I face the challenge, or do I take a victim mentality? And it seems so simple, but when you are faced with those moments of, oh, I can't be bothered getting out of bed and going to school today, or I don't trust my boss, so I'm not going to talk up about why I think things aren't going well in this place. That's a victim mentality in an adult or in a young person. And if you take the hero mentality, the personal leadership mentality is to choose growth, do the uncomfortable thing, while focusing on your goals. And we know that's really hard to do if you don't focus on longer term goals. So that's where our program starts, one of the 4 big decisions, which is why your business name's so great, because one of them is choose growth, business growth mindset. The other one for us, the first one for us, is defining that sense of growth to what end? What is success for you? And if you can keep that in mind, it might be a job, it might be your family situation, it might be service to community. You get to choose what your ultimate goal and purpose in life is. And once you've got that, it will be easier to get out of bed, and it will be easier to speak up to your boss if you're having a bad day or whatever the reason is, or it'll be easier for you to step outside your comfort zone and introduce yourself to new people, because you have the goal in mind. There's a reason. It's not just because people told you to, or you think you should, or you saw it on social media. Like, you've got to connect with that goal yourself, and you have the power to do that. So yeah, really, really smart. The other 4 big decisions. So we've got decide to be happy, decide to goal plan, decide to send stars, which is positively communicating with people around you, and decide to choose growth. And they're the 4 foundational, basically, habits and principles that we help young people cultivate. And we say you've got to believe in them, you've got to value them, but then it is habits. It's every day in a million small ways, choosing small acts of bravery to grow these into everyday habits so you don't realize. And now I'm pretty great at it. And so it means that I don't have to work as hard myself. Like, I kind of fall asleep at the wheel a lot of the time. I am a very positive person. I'm a very growth-minded person. I set goals in alignment with my values, directional goals, not really tight goals. But I do that automatically because it's a habit. And that's what we're trying to help young people cultivate, the attitude shift and then the habits to actually get through tough times. You're smiling a lot. It's fun, isn't it? Right?
I'm glowing. I get. This is the bit when my team edit this. Literally, they've got to sit there and take the smile, because if every one of you is not smiling at home, right? Any of my customers that are listening, right? You know that this is what I breathe.
My jam.
Right? Like this. No, but everything you were saying, I'm just like, what I love is that we're teaching it at the grassroots,
Mm-hmm.
which is the biggest problem in this country with our education system. We don't teach this stuff. This is what makes you more resilient. It builds your inner fabric, right? And I mean, I agree with you. If I had been taught this stuff when I got expelled from my first school, my second school, my third school, right? And it wasn't until I ended up at St. Peter's College where, the deputy headmaster at the time, the late Ray Stanley, just went, no, he's a colonel in the army. He looked at me and went, no, I think we'll keep you here. I said, you sure? And I think I tried everything in my first year to get expelled, and he kept me. I spent a long time in detention, but that was the first time where I saw a different set of values, and it was cool being surrounded by people that were really, really smart and people that were really prepared to put in the work, and and then they have sport and curriculum. That's why I always feel so privileged, because I look at it and go, I could have ended up anywhere. My parents could have totally given up on me, well, my mother anyway, and said no. Instead, they made a commitment to spend more money. I think for them, I think they still ask themselves whether or not it worked out.
No, they don't. And you get it right, because as you said before, you're a long-term supporter of ours, and I still do get quite philanthropically involved as well as working here. We believe in the potential in young people like little Kristian. We see the potential in them. One of my favorite things that an educator ever said at a graduation, she stood up, she was the year 10 level, year level coordinator, and we mostly work with year 10s when we work with young people in schools. And she stood up, tears in her eyes, and said, we saw the light in front of these young people years ago, and we've been waiting for them to see it in themselves. And the kids are like, oh, miss, stop it. Because, we can see it. And what astounds me continually with our supporters, our donors, and we've got donors in America and all over the world who send us money to invest in these amazing young people. They'll never meet them. They don't know them, but they believe in the potential of young people. They believe in our heart and smart approach to helping young people become their own heroes. And the more money we can raise, the more young people we reach. And we're still pushing back the ocean of need. Of course, it's growing. We've all heard statistics around COVID and the mental health impacts. And, as you said, this stuff, it makes sense to people like you and I, and it sounds really like inspiring and jazzy. It works because of the evidence base. So what we with our program and our toolkit, we've taken some really complex psychological constructs, and you would do this in your coaching too, and just use really simple symbolism that can cut through, that you can hang on to. You don't have to read a paper or understand the complexities of positive psychology. But what I can tell you is the evidence tells me that if you communicate in a positive way with people around you, and importantly to yourself, with your self-talk, it will improve your well-being, it will reduce your risk of psychological distress, and it will build your resilience. I don't tell teenagers that. I tell them, hey, let's send stars and let's try and avoid black holes. It's a symbolism, and it's practical. We send them out and we ask them. It's a very facilitative approach, like, what's a star? What's a black hole? What's this mean? Have a go. Report back next week. How did it go? What does a star look like in the work environment, in a home environment? They say, oh, I don't know. We say, well, when you drop your bag at the front door and you go straight through to your room without saying hello to whoever's in the house, do you reckon that's a star? It's a positive communication? Or do you think it's a black hole, a negative communication? Do you think it makes people feel good? What could be an alternative? Just walk through the house and say hello to people. Well, yeah, but what's the point of that? Or do you think it make them feel better? Do you think they make them feel good that you went out of your way to do that? It's exactly the same in the workplace, which is what we're finding now that we're working with adults in workplaces, construction, white collar, sporting clubs, all over the place. Same things. You say, you walk in your office or your workshop or wherever you are, footy club, and you just keep your eyes up and say g'day to people. What kind of ripples does that have? Not only in you, because you feel proud that you created that and you were brave and you made eye contact, so you're sending yourself stars, but what about the other people? Do you reckon it makes them feel good, seen, validated, brave to also say g'day back? Like, think of the ripples. You have so much power to shape the world around you. That's that locus of control thing. Go out and try it. Report back next week. So even when we work with adults, whether it's in groups or one-on-one, corporates or football clubs, whatever, we still always have one-on-one coaching, and you'll know how powerful this is, because it is really important for us to apply our individual strategies to our individual goals, reflect on those, and
Absolutely.
level up the next level, as well as the group normalizing. Oh my gosh, Kristian, I thought I was the only one that thought that. Really? Like, that's normal? Oh my God, I do that too. Or, with the kids, because I don't get to work with adults so much myself. But I've been in classrooms with students where they're like, wow, I thought that was just me. This is amazing. How did you get over that? And they'll share with each other ideas and tactics. And that's so much more powerful than an adult coming in and saying, what you need to do is.
Look, it's, I'm so awakened listening to you. I'm sitting here, I'm blown away that A, this is the first time we've actually had a conversation. B, after this podcast, we're going to be talking some more. But I think that anyone not listening, anyone who's listening today who is not feeling an awakening or a heightened sense of inspiration to be more inquisitive, right? And inquire more, right? Like I always tell people to be inquisitive, right? My children in particular, it's like, have an inquisitive mind, right? Become comfortable with being uncomfortable, like that's my big thing. And I'm listening to you and the message that you're radiating, and it's just like, bam, right? And I just want to thank you for that, because that's the message everyone needs to be hearing. There is so much value in what you're saying, not just to these young people, but to humans.
All of us.
And that's what this is about. And I think, and I know a lot of the evidence-based stuff you're talking about, because I've done a lot of work in the positive psychology area. The concept of my business is founded on grow and flourish. Yeah. So the flourish theory, which is the happiness theory, which is all the positive psychology. Also at Saints, they've got a huge positive psychology program, a wellbeing program that the former headmaster Simon Murray put into place. And I'm a big believer in when you walk around, lift your eyes up. Like my children, I have to tell the story. I fell on a heap crying when my mother-in-law came home. I didn't know my children did this. My mother-in-law takes one of the children to the markets every single Sunday. And my children, I'm probably going to cry again now. And this is like, because this to me is a definition of how I'm being as a parent. I find parenting really, really difficult, because it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And my children buy a coffee and breakfast for one homeless person every Sunday morning.
Wow.
And it's whoever might be, they know where they are and they look for them and they ask them, can I get you a coffee and something warm to eat? And it's just,
it's beautiful,
every
man.
time, right?
It's beautiful.
Because that's a measure of the values that we teach our children. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that happened. And my mother-in-law looked at me. She goes, what are you crying for? I'm like, you never told me that they did
this. Beautiful moment.
Right? Like I said, no one ever told me that this happens. And they're just like, yeah, but we just know that you just fall into a heap and have a cry. And I'm like, well, why? Right?
Well, you've met their expectations.
Like, I don't cry, right? There's only whenever I tell people how I found my purpose in life, and then that story where I just start crying. And I think when I lost everything, I went from semi-retired to homeless. I feel that, people don't know what it's like. You said it, you used the words, you couch surfed, right? Well, I couch surfed and I spent time sleeping in my car, and I went from, pin-up boy in the newspapers to, and most people didn't even know I was going through that, because everyone just saw the brave face. And I think that's the big lesson for people is, and I'll come back to the point I was going to make, otherwise I'll digress. Doesn't hurt anyone to look up and smile, right? Like, like in our offices, you walk in and you're the first person, you look up and you wish everyone a good morning. When you leave, it's good afternoon, never a goodbye, right? Like these are the simple philosophies. And I have the same mantra with my clients. And, I always say to people, I'm the most blessed person in the world because I have the most beautiful clients, right? Like people that it's not transactional, right? Like, anyone that's transactional, I'm fortunate enough, I have the privilege to say, listen, I'm not for you. Now, a lot of people say that to me, but you're lucky because you've done it. No, there's no such thing as luck.
Strategic choices.
Absolutely. It's the decisions we make. So many people make no decisions. And then some people, unfortunately, like some of the youth, the children that you work with, they never got to make their own decisions. They had their circumstances strip them of a lot of their decision making. And I believe what I've seen from Youth Opportunities, you re-empower these young people to make better choices, right? But also to make better decisions. Now, I say that because I've had the privilege of, I think, 6 or 7 graduates working for me when I had a hospitality chain. And some of them, 2 of them, in fact, I'm still very good friends with. And one went off to become an acclaimed chef. So, and I've seen these boys. These are boys in particular. One was a girl, but boys in particular, they were self-harming before they started the program, and it changed their life. And I think that's what's really powerful. So thank you for sharing how the curricula works, and also the fact that now you can work with adults.
Yeah, we're outside the school gates. That's as of last year. So this year is our 25th
that's new.
year.
I didn't know about that.
It's new, man. It's new.
Yeah.
Growth. It happens. You know it.
Oh, I know it, and I love it. So tell me a little bit more about that. Like, was that one of your brainchild? Was the board? What was
it's
it?
A combination. Yeah, I think one of the things our organisation's really good at is seizing opportunities. And look, it's the charity sector too. So in terms of, you always ask in business, in any business, whether you're a non-profit or not, is the why. Why do I exist? What am I here for? Before you go launching into like growth targets and whatever. And so when I first joined Youth Opportunities in the business, having the benefit of being on the board for a few years, so kind of knowing the landscape that we worked in, that was the big question that I worked with the chairman at the time. Why are we here? We are sweeping back the ocean of need. We will, it's you have a vision and you never expect to get there. A world where all young people can be their best. Like, it's nice to imagine it. Can I imagine being there? Not probably in reality, but we fight for it anyway. So you've got all these choices about where you're going to grow as a business, and particularly as a charity, there is a lot of tension between the money you spend on your back office and on the front line. Every IT upgrade I do is another young person that doesn't get through the program. Every square meter of office space I have is another young person that doesn't get through the program. And charities live with that tension, and there's a real push to keep their back office lean. They don't invest in training, development, technology, infrastructure, all those things, and culture. It comes at a cost. Short-term gain over, that long-term sustainable pain. Sometimes they can manage that tension really well, but in my experience, it suffers, as most businesses do, if you don't invest in its capacity. So lots and lots of strategic choices when I joined. I worked in a business for a long time. It was over 150 years old. So I constantly say to people, look, we've been here 25 years. We'll be here at least another 25 years. Unfortunately, the need's not going away. We don't need to rush anything. If you think you've got to rush stuff today, let's all just remember that there are millions of children around the world who are not getting access to this program that need it. Depressing, yes, but also it gives you permission to take a beat and really think about what you're doing, because you will never get to them all. So just like soak in that, and let's make some strategic choices from here. And so I've taken my time. I started a 5-year strategic roadmap. I said to our board, look, we've got to have a strategy. We've got to know where we're headed. Otherwise, we'll be jumping at things that we can never do everything that people will want us to do. And that is, again, unfortunately, the challenge. I went on this great business growth workshop, and they said, oh, you got to increase your profit. And I'm like, yeah, okay. All the people, and who's your ideal customer? All the people that are the ones I need to work with are the ones who can't afford it the most. And so I have to redefine what success is in this sector. And of course, it's about impact, sustainable change, and building capacity in local communities. I actually want to make us redundant. I want to change the systems, change communities, and change individual people and families so they don't need me. It really is genuinely the Mary Poppins model. Like, I'm here so that I don't need to be here. And then I move on, because there'll be other people and businesses that need me. So generally, that's our 5-year roadmap, is saying that we need to, yes, we want to grow our reach, but we have to do it sustainably. We have to not only create graduates, but continue to support them. Their lives are often quite complex, all of ours are. And so you can't just run a program and then drop them. You've got to keep working with them and wrapping support around them. You also have to obviously mobilize philanthropy from the community to continue doing that. And you have to look after and love your donors as much as you love the children you work with, because they don't exist without each other. It's basically 2 parts of the customer pie, is the person paying and the person consuming. And then you've also got to make sure you've got your backbone of your infrastructure. So we've had these 5 strategic focus areas that have guided us. The first year of our 5-year roadmap was the COVID year. So really validating that I'd taken a very high level roadmap approach instead of a tactical plan, because otherwise I would have thrown it out the window in the first month of the year. The whole thing would have been for nothing. But effectively what happened in terms of the social enterprise and outside the school gates, so we had this overarching, we want to grow our reach, but sustainably. We can't keep living hand to mouth in terms of donations. You donate me $1, I spend it straight away. What does that do for the future? I need to work out what that is and manage that tension. And then in the lead up to Christmas in 2019, I got a phone call at the office late at night. And as a CE, that means I'm the receptionist. So I answered the switchboard call, which you sometimes do as a CE of a charity. And it was this gentleman who called me from the Women's and Children's Hospital here in Adelaide. His daughter was in hospital quite frequently. He said, they've given me your number because they said you might be able to help. My daughter's in hospital again. I can't remember if it was eating disorder or self-harming. And I just need help, and I'll pay whatever I need to pay, but I just need to help. I don't know what to do. And they thought you might be able to help me. And at that time, we very much had a model of working in partnership with schools. So I asked what school are you at, because it was a private school, because he was a man of means, a family of means. And I said, I'm really sorry, we don't work with that school. How old's your daughter? We had a bit of a chat, and I helped him a bit at the time as much as I could. But I just since then went that I can't keep saying no to people. These are people in any business who are willing to pay, see value in what you offer, and you cannot offer it to them. Your hands are tied. That's not good business. At the very least, let alone, by the way, I also have a heart and I feel for that young girl in hospital.
Yes.
So thus started the conversation with our board about what does it look like to go outside the school gates? What does it look like for us to leverage some of our COVID pivoting into the technology space into a more scalable model and a more adult-oriented model where you don't have those same barriers. You've got people who computer literate, have access to technology, can understand and consume the content and value coaching. Because the program is an online program coupled with one-on-one coaching via technology. And yeah, we started the social enterprise officially last year. So we've had clients for about 2 years now, but officially last year we launched Generation Thrive, our social enterprise, and working with about 15 organisations and sporting clubs at the moment, in conversation with 3 times as many as that. We've got coaches all around Australia because they're on Zoom, so they can be anywhere. So we've got people down in Tasmania and over in Queensland, and big multinational companies that we're talking to, as well as really place-based, sports clubs. And so yeah, it's the same program, but just recontextualized for an adult audience, and with the coaching then customized to each individual participant. And the profits come back, as I said, to help build the sustainability of our fundraising efforts too. I mean, as a business person, I expect that we should help ourselves as much as we ask anybody else to help us. But it is interesting also to see that our other stakeholders like government and trusts and foundations are also saying, well, what are you doing to make sure you've got financial sustainability? Because I can keep giving you money, but you're just going to keep asking for more money. So you got to pitch in too, right?
I tell you, again, no one's going to be seeing me because I'm just smiling, right? It takes a lot to keep me quiet. So anyway, everyone's thinking, is Kristian gone? Is Erin just talking to herself? I just want our audience to, I just need to recap what you've just demonstrated, which is really bloody impressive. Strategic thinking, a care for your audience, but your ability to seek opportunity, right? When it's staring at you. So many people in the non-for-profit space would have just kept, not even the too hard basket, just can't do it. Whereas you've demonstrated that entrepreneurial approach to thinking, which is what I teach people, right? And you just did it there and then. And it's this, what we call 360-degree vision, Erin, and you've got that. And I would assume that, the 17 odd years or 14 years, no, 17 years at SA Water, I did some work for SA Water and Innovation. So I know that in the latter years, particularly with the French coming in to be the CEOs, there was a big movement around really innovative, creative thinking. And I can see where you've evolved significantly in that, but you've also got an excellent board. Well, so when I was there was
That's
some
true.
really
Yes.
spectacular people.
Yes.
So it's nice to be surrounded by that. But that really blows me away. And you might be thinking, oh, what are you talking about?
It's just life, Kristian.
No, but
I'm glad to hear it.
No, but I believe that compliments are going to be given when someone says something. And to me, you just painted the absolute perfect picture of the way a leader of an organization should be behaving, because you're actually identifying problems that need to be solved, big problems. Like, let's be frank, massive problem. And you went, you know what? I'm not saying no to this anymore. We've got to do something about this. That's how you build a killer entrepreneurial business. And I think that, the message for me is that you're totally debugging the entire non-for-profit. It's like, who are you, right? And I was going to ask you, how was your transition from public servant corporate, right, to non-for-profit? Well, you've answered it. You've taken the opportunity and just gone on a wicked ride with it. And I got to tell you, I'm blown away. Like, as someone who has been involved with this organization for so long, okay, not in the last 2 or 3 years, but I'm blown away. I mean, take my money again.
Oh,
right?
thanks, man.
It's that simple.
I'll put it to good use for you.
Yeah, I don't worry. We'll find ways of making more. But I think what blows me away is the level of thinking that is being adopted. But I love that then you take the money that you can get from people who really need you and re-put it back into the program to increase your IT, to attract better people. Because at the end of the day, whether you're a non-for-profit or any kind of business, everyone's for profit, right? Like, as in, if you don't make any money, you don't pay your bills.
You're not running.
Right?
Yeah.
That's right. So, I find it, fascinating. And I don't do any work in non-for-profits except one, which I'm chairman of, innovation in the city in South Australia, for innovation entrepreneurship in South Australia. But that's it, because I decided I couldn't work in that environment anymore. Because I was like, these people don't want to make money. Like, you have to make money, people, to be able to fund your initiatives.
Yeah.
Right? And I loved hearing that from you. It was like, at which point do we stop just getting handouts? And I mean, Youth Opportunities in the past has some incredible philanthropists behind them. I won't mention them because some of them like to be kept pretty quiet. And they're spectacular people. They are actually really spectacular. I have the privilege of being in their houses, and they bought me at the auctions, and I got to meet them.
That sounds terrible, Kristian. His delicious food and excellent service is what they purchased.
Well, no, actually, it was command performances. So I actually had to tell my
Kristian
story.
host us.
Right?
That's true.
Yeah, no, hang on. Not when you're going in the wrong area. I'm not going there.
Just clarifying for the listeners.
Yeah. So it was one of those things that, a lot of people don't actually know. Like, my entrepreneurial journey started in hospitality. These days, it's the complete opposite. But and again, it just shows how far you can move. Yeah. But I think that was wonderful. I want to ask you a question, which I'm sure you've probably been asked many times. But what's the biggest challenge that I'm going to rephrase it. What's the biggest challenge that you're facing now at Youth Opportunities, and how are you tackling it?
The biggest one, there's lots of them. I think personally for me as the chief executive, because our organisation is tackling lots of challenges, but me as our chief executive working with our board, and as you said, I'm very fortunate to have helped successive chairs cultivate and support an excellent board, it is always that question of, is it shift or is it drift? How much do we do here or there? And so, and how quickly? Because as I said, there's no right answer. There's no shareholder expectation on return. If you're going to reach 2,000 kids this year and 3,000 next year, is that the right number or is it not? If it was 2,500 kids, what would you do with the money from those other 500? And how much are you supporting today versus the future? So how much are you saying, I've got to reach all the young people with excellent outcomes today that I can, at the cost of supporting even more in future? And it's the same for other businesses. Investing in growth comes at the cost of working today more. And that happens at the high level with our strategy and our budget and our resourcing, working with the board to understand their risk and opportunity appetite and helping them define it themselves. Do you want me to roll out more programs here in SA, or do you want me to get serious about national? Do you want to back your social enterprise to really grow that? Or are you happy that it just kind of evolves organically? How much do you want to press down on the accelerator? How many resources are you committing to it? Is one of our big things that we're constantly calibrating with, that I'm calibrating with the board.
Why is the board limiting themselves to just nationalising?
Well, yeah, it's true. When we say national, it can be international. Yeah,
with the program that you've now built, right?
Yeah. The only difference is time zone and English language is the basis. That's all.
Well, there's plenty of countries where they speak English.
That's true.
So, and I work all over the world, and I guess that's why I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, no, the board needs to understand that what's the value in nationalising? You globalise. If when I was the entrepreneur and resident at the university, I kind of brought this idea of born global first, which is an academic philosophy, and a lot of the academics were like, hang on a minute, you actually know academic stuff? I'm like, come on, mate, right, relax. Just because I'm the practitioner, look at my title, it still says adjunct professor. I actually brought it up, and I taught all the startups this philosophy. If you're going to have a startup, make it born global. Now, for anyone that doesn't understand the concept, is that you go in with a mindset that whatever you're going to do is around the whole world. COVID gave us this incredible opportunity to globalize on another level. And everyone looks at me and goes, what are you talking about? The first 6 weeks, I was like, I am going to cash in on this. And everyone was like, what are you talking about? My future wife was like, Kristian, you're going nuts. The whole world is crumbling, right? You've got the hospital on high alert. You've got all these people. And then you're thinking about how to actually, I said, are you kidding me? This is adversity at its highest level. Don't touch the stock market. Let it collapse. I said, let Warren think about how he's going to benefit from that. Me, there's this thing called Zoom that I've been using for 2 years. I'm putting money in this thing and I'm going for it. Like, it was, I guess I'm being crazy, but the point I'm making is we have been given so many opportunities just in the last couple of years, but people have just chosen to ignore them. And so the born global philosophy is that whatever you start has to have this idea that it can do much more than where it is. And I genuinely believe, because I thought maybe you guys had already nationalized, but clearly you haven't.
Well, yeah, so technically we have. Last year we converted our structure from an incorporated association to a company limited by guarantee, which took the shackles off legally. So we can actually be anywhere in the world now, which is exciting. I don't think we currently have any international participants, which is why I say we're not international. But if I got an inquiry tomorrow from someone outside of Australia who wanted to participate, they could. We had someone from the UK last year, as you said. The difference is time zone. And as long as they can speak English, because our platform currently doesn't have alternative languages, then you're in, baby. That's all it takes.
I'm thinking of some of our listeners that are philanthropists and entrepreneurs who may want to consider bringing youth opportunities to the country where they reside. I'm not going to call out any names, but I know that there's 3 of my good friends who listen every single episode, who, this is something I will have a side conversation about, because now you can globalize it.
That's
I'm
right.
assuming it's all delivered on, well, parts of it are delivered online.
Yeah, outside this. Yeah, it's certainly outside the school gate stuff.
Yeah.
It's all, there's a Moodle-based platform, and the coaching's via Zoom.
I've not heard anyone say using the platform that you're talking about since I was working at uni.
Flashbacks.
All of those platforms are, oh my gosh, these are so complicated.
Learning management systems.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. It was like, I just heard, I was like, oh, deja vu.
I'm having flashbacks. Yeah. But ours is slightly more multimodal. So I've done 3 degrees at Uni SA and used Moodle, and it looks to me, they were very functional, very text-based. You upload things. Ours is a very multimodal, visually rich, digitally rich experience, because it's a transformational learning program. And obviously the coaching is great because that really comes to life. It's experience-based, individually focused. But when you've got people consuming and interacting with content online, again, my background's in IT, so the user experience is really important. Otherwise you're just going to switch right off. It's got to be engaging. It can be the best content in the world, but if nobody wants to watch it or listen to it or click on it, it's not going to matter. So yeah, it's not like your hardcore uni, here's your timetable, upload your assignment.
Yeah, no, because it's interesting, because I did my MBA at Uni SA, and I've got a lot of friends A lot of the professors I've become very good friends with. And obviously I used to work at the competing university as an adjunct, and I was on the business school board there too. But I found it that the software package that we used at Adelaide was much more challenging. Whereas the one at UniSA, you could actually navigate. And then I went through the period where there was a huge transition in it. And I'm like, oh, it's getting easier. Thank goodness for that. But I'm glad that you said the words rich and engaging and, above all, entertaining.
Yeah.
And Erin, I know I'm taking up a lot of your time, but I've got a couple more questions I want to get to. The one that I really want to know is, and obviously because of the challenges you had in your upbringing and then the decisions you made, but with the amount of that you've learned over time, if you could turn back the time to, I don't know, your 18-year-old self, what would you tell them?
Probably the same thing I'm telling my today 42-year-old self, because it's a constant mental battle to back yourself. And, gaslighting's a thing now. That wasn't a thing when I was 18. So I probably would go back and say, hey, there's this thing called gaslighting. It's happening to you a lot. You should keep an eye on that. It's like probably what I would do. That's probably the main thing. All the other adversities I've been through, other than those that were in my genuine childhood, has been post-traumatic growth. And again, sometimes it's little t trauma. Sometimes in my childhood, it's, really proper big T trauma. But it's all added up to the person I am today. Even my mum went through such terrible, terrible things. She was in and out of psych wards most of my life until she passed away when she was like 62, so way too young.
Wow.
And, there's plenty of things I'd take out. I'd go back to her 18-year-old self to break the cycle of disadvantage that, she did the best she could for us and it wasn't good enough. And a lot of that wasn't her fault, of course. So I'd probably go back to her rather than back to me. A bit like there's a movie called The Butterfly Effect. And,
yes,
it basically goes back to the point he was born, not his 18-year-old. Like by 18, you're pretty much close to done and formed.
Well, you are. I mean, I teach, I got to break some vicious cycles and self-limiting beliefs with CEOs of large companies. And people always say to me, Kristian, are you a growth advisor and strategist? And I said, yeah, that's what I get paid most of my money for. But when you start working with these people, you got to understand that you become so intertwined with them when you're writing their 5-10 year strategy. And then when you have 90-day cycle stuff and you're working with them, but you can't get any of that done if you don't break through their limiting beliefs. And, some of these companies are, $50 million turnover elephants, second generation. So they've got all this other built up shit. And I'm just, and everyone says, well, why are you so successful? And I look at them and I go, I'm not. I'm just as successful as my client. If they open up to me and allow me in, I can bring all of my life experiences pre-12 to the table. Yeah. Everyone looks at me and goes, what? I said, mate, you are formed before you're 12. Okay. Your skin is thickened before you're 12. I mean, the science says it, right? The evidence suggests that you know your purpose in life before you're 8 years old. Your values are formed before you're 6, right? In most cases. Now, you can adjust some of those things, but, when you go back to I have a program that we're building now called Live with Purpose, right? It's obviously it's my strat line. We're in the process of doing some trademarking. But I built this program because, someone like you identified all these people that were coming to you that needed your help. And so many of these business people come to me and I'm like, but I don't do that. And I'm like, I'm not a life coach. I'm not even a coach. Like I'm an advisor, right? Like I have the snobby tag title, right? Because I also charge about 10 times more. But the point is I get results. And I realized I can't get results if I don't help the person. Because an organization is a group of people.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And I've never, I'm a big fan of Jim Collins. And Jim talks about people first. Anyone go on this podcast, you hear me talk about Jim Collins all the time. He graduate Stanford professor of the Graduate Business School. I mean, I would have loved to have been taught by someone like him. But he talks about this people first.
Yeah. And how fun is it? Like when people say, they don't such and such, or they, like, who is they? We are a collection of individual humans. Who is this they you speak of?
I remember years ago when my first iteration of being Kristian, and it used to be fucking I all the time, right? And I look back at myself now and I think, I'm such a dick. And I say that to myself, and I still am sometimes. But the moment I woke up and realized it's we are a living, breathing organism. There is no I. I don't hear that shit all the time. There's no I in team. And I play team sports, but I was always the I. You know, like it's like I am going to be the better player, right? No, we. So you know, again, for me, if I ever had to go back, I'm going to answer my own question. If I ever had to go back to my 18-year-old self, the first thing I'd be saying, hey, mate, there's no I, right? It's like everything's we. Life will be so much easier when you focus on helping other people. And I look at that and I say to myself, what I've achieved in the last 3 years is 10x what I spent 41 years doing. And the biggest shift for me was being able to bring everyone on the journey with you. And, you know, that's all I've heard today. Listening to you is this beautiful, I've got a vision, right? Like, and I'm looking at this and it's like, yeah, this huge park of all these people just working together, right, to support one another, right? And just, I feel this love and this embrace. And I think that's really special. And it's a wonderful evolution of an organization that I've always felt so fondly about in the first place. So from a person that's super proud of being associated with YouthOp in the past, I'm now almost blown away that I haven't been around for 2 or 3 years and how far you've come, and no one needed me to help.
Now you get to you help.
Sad, right?
You get to be here for the next part.
I know where I plan to be.
There's plenty of work to be done, my friend.
So what I want to know, Erin, we've run out of time, and I know you've got to go, but I want to do the fast 5 in 5. So this is new for this series, and it does catch a few people out. So you don't get much time here. It is fast for 5. So what makes you feel inspired?
Hanging out with children. They're so fun. They have no boundaries.
So do I, actually. What is the best compliment that you've ever received?
You take direction very well.
Really? Yep. Oh, that's brilliant. I love it.
That was from our founder.
Okay, great. Well, that's surprising that a founder says that.
Yeah.
If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
Made people smile.
Made people smile? Okay, best book recommendation.
Oh, Becoming Better Grown-Ups by Brad Montague.
Okay,
All-time favorite.
I have not read that, so I will definitely get a copy of that.
Have you heard of Kid President? Have you heard of Kid President? YouTube sensation. Yeah, Kid President, created by a guy called Brad Montague out of America, has written a book called
What is it?
Kid President. So it's literally a little kid pretending he's the president of the US. It's adorable. Right. And he does pep talks. But yeah, Becoming Better Grown-Ups. Amazing.
Better Grown-Ups. Do you know, I've got 4 pages of notes. And I don't have my iPad because my daughter took it and she's been watching stuff. So I normally write in that. So now I've got like pages and I can see my EA floating around going, oh, great, I'm going to have to now interpret his handwriting, right? And my handwriting is worse than doctor's handwriting, right? No offense to any doctors out there that write well. Now, last one. If you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it be and why?
We actually just got a billboard. It was a YouthOps one. I just want everybody to get behind kids. So it would be some cool, snazzy way of making people do that.
Cool. All right. He didn't really answer my question, but I'll take that. Now,
well, I'm not a creative designer, Kristian. You can't just
design
a billboard on the spot.
I put people on the spot.
I have smarter people that design billboards for me.
Erin, I really want to thank you for being on the show today. I cannot believe that that's an hour, or for us, an hour and 15 minutes. I really hope that everybody listening enjoyed it. Before I wrap up, though, can you just, and we're going to put all the stuff in the show notes, how can people get in touch with Youth Opportunities from 2 perspectives? One, to learn a little bit more so they can be involved from a philanthropic perspective. And 2, if anyone is listening who's got a company, who's got people potentially that could benefit from the program at a corporate level, how they could get in touch with your team.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I know you answer the phone as well.
Yes.
So maybe if you
late at night,
lucky, you call and Erin just answer the phone.
I was here all day yesterday. It's a public holiday in Australia. I could have answered your call. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's been delightful to hang out with you. So the first port of call is probably our website, youthopportunities.com.au. If you found a big blue and green star, then that's us. And certainly you can donate online. You can reach out to us about other ways that you can share your time, treasure, talent, your tribe to support young people in need. We'd love to hear from you. My last name hopefully will be in your show notes because it's a hard one to spell. Erin Faehrmann. It doesn't look how it sounds.
I didn't try and pronounce it.
I know, right? It's Erin. But yeah, look me up on LinkedIn. I'm prolific. Come find me, ask me whatever you need. I do get calls semi-regularly from some of our corporate donors and supporters to debrief their teenage children challenges. So I can also help you with that on the side. But the organisation, our social enterprise that works outside the school gates with young people, as you say, organisations, sporting clubs, wherever, even working with local councils, government organisations like the Department for Child Protection to identify young people who can't afford but need access, or businesses who want to invest in the leadership of their people, or even, as I mentioned now, if that gentleman called me from the Women's and Kids and said, I want to pay, I could send him to the website and he could sign up his daughter and he could do the program. My stepson's done it. He's 25, loved it, changed his life. He's got 2 young kids, changed the way he's parenting his 2 babies. So that our social enterprise is Generation Thrive. So generationthrive.com.au, you will find us there. But yeah, either through LinkedIn or either of those websites, you'll track us down.
Look, Erin, thank you for sharing that with us. I mean, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and I really mean that. Thank you. I want to take this time to thank all of our listeners, and we value you. And I know that there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and yet, for some reason, you choose to listen to ours. And for that, I want to thank you. And make sure you do visit the show notes, because you will find all the useful links that we've just talked, that Erin has talked us through, including the audacious spelling of her surname. And make sure that you connect with Erin on LinkedIn, because she is prolific on the platform, as I am, and we'll provide that LinkedIn URL as well. A massive shout out to my awesome team at the Business Growth Mindset at Growth Outsource, Medi Sociale and Argentum Linio, for not only your support, but the incredible resilience you have for putting up with me and all the crazy things that I want to do. If you haven't subscribed to this podcast, please do, because we don't want you to miss anything, but more importantly, change those notification settings, because they, if you don't, you'll still miss things. Other than that, guys, until next time, live with purpose.
Are you ready to start taking action on your business? Would you like to spend more time with your family? Then call 1300 643 229 and start building momentum right now. I know you're busy. In fact, you are so busy that you don't have time to work on your business or yourself. Often tossing and turning at night, worrying about the how-tos and the cash flow. How on earth can you possibly get off the hamster wheel so that you can take a helicopter view to see where you'll be in 90 days, 1 year, or 3 years from now? In this program, I will take you from sleepless nights to blissful sleep. You'll have more time with your family, and you will have the clarity and direction so you can grow and flourish. Call 1300 643 229 now and start building momentum.